Being a dad
Dad!
comes with a lot of
Can you
responsibilities.
help me beat this game?
Yes, but I didn't realize, yes I will, that I was facing a local legend, the Bling Blipper, a fearsome fish whose reputation extends deep into internet folklore. And I don't know about that, but one thing's for sure.
Well, I pressed the button. Come on.
This game is really hard, but don't worry, because in this video, we're going to build a solution. 3 of them, actually, to one of the biggest questions of our time. Okay, let's talk strategy. So if one of these buttons lights up, you press the corresponding button on the controller, obviously. But the more you catch, the bigger the fish, the harder it gets because you have to be faster. And I'm going to look at 3 different ways to do this that get progressively more advanced, starting from one version that uses no code at all, to our final version where we basically invent our own smart controller. And that one's pretty cool, you want to see that one. And if my robots find this game too easy, we'll find another game, and we'll see just how far we can take it. But before we devote 4,000 lines of code to this, I wonder, can we do it with none? So I didn't actually set out to build a version that could beat the video game without writing any code. It just kind of happened over time. I was just plugging these components in, and there was a point where I was about ready to plug the microcontroller in, and I realized I don't necessarily think I even need it. And then that became the new challenge, was to answer the question, can I beat that video game without having to write like a single line of code? Turns out the answer was, sorta. But what the heck is this thing, and how does it work? All we're really doing here is detecting changes in the brightness of the screen in whatever area we position these arms at. There are a couple ways to do this. You could use LDRs like these guys, or phototransistors. On paper, phototransistors are better because they're faster. In reality, they stink. The threshold adjustment is really not sensitive enough for what we need. And we can set a threshold because both these guys are mounted to a PCB that have a comparator built in, meaning I can adjust this potentiometer to set the threshold right where I need it to trigger. And when it triggers, it just sends a digital output. The digital output goes to these PWM switches, which fire the 12 volts to our solenoids to slam these buttons. Cool, that sounds pretty easy. There's no gotchas or anything, are there? Well, these comparators trigger in a transition from light to dark. And wouldn't you know it, we need the exact opposite. Sounds about right. Well, that's okay. We just need to buy one of these guys to flip the signals and wire it up. And then do it again because we blew up the first one. I replaced this logic inverter thing, which I think I blew up the first time by hot plugging one of these solenoids in. That was kind of dumb. I think it's going to work now. Stop it. Stop it. I know it's firing randomly, but it's working. You know what? It caught a fish. It did it really fast. Let's try again. Easy. Ooh, these are really hot. Okay. I'm smelling hot plastic. Okay, so obviously this thing is like super finicky. To try and move, like reposition one of these sensors without moving all of them is basically impossible. Every time I use it, I put like the biggest, heaviest blanket I could find on the base just to try and hold it steady. And that never really worked. Like the dog walks past and it screws everything up. But if you're thinking there's a better way, trust me, I know. That's why this is version 1, the caveman version. I think some of the later versions are going to have some pretty cool features that you may have in your head already. But now it's time to talk about phase 2, which looks nothing like the first one. That's because we replaced these individual sensors with a camera and a Raspberry Pi and this touchscreen display. If the first one had no code, we're making up for it now. But I'm still calling this a caveman version. Now, I'm not suggesting that cave people beat video games with robots. That's ridiculous. I just mean to say they probably used more manual brute force methods, and that reminds me of these solenoids slamming the buttons, which we're still using in phase 2. But don't worry, we'll get rid of these in phase 3. So now that we have a camera, we can point it at the screen and use it for computer vision. And while Raspberry Pis are pretty cool little computers, you don't want to do vision analysis on the entire TV screen. So instead, we program regions of interest for it to focus on and make the whole thing a lot faster. This allows us to do things well beyond what just 4 sensors could do, like detect the word fish to start the game, or multiple continue locations, so this one can run pretty much indefinitely. But as useful as this camera is, it also kind of stinks. Because just like the first one, if you or the dog bump into it, your alignment gets all screwed up. I put this square around Kirby to use as a kind of fixture to help align it, but it didn't really help much. So when this solenoid fell apart,
Uh-oh.
I took it as a sign to move on to phase 3. But as I started down the path, something felt off. Both these robots were super fast, but still, I never caught a bling blipper. Not even by accident. And I started to wonder, was this fish? Night night, girl. Becoming an obsession? Well, the best way to cure an obsession is to over-engineer a solution. But let's review what we've done so far and the plan for Stage 3. Stage 1 was our no-code LDR solenoid robot. In Stage 2, we got rid of the LDRs and replaced them with a camera and outputs from the Pi. In Stage 3, we're changing two things. The camera is gone, and instead, we're going to split the Nintendo HDMI, run it through USB capture into the Pi. That gets us consistent video at 60 frames per second, which solves a lot. This whole controller solenoid thing is gone, but how are we going to trigger input to the Nintendo? Well, we're going to make our own controller. If we add a ESP32 into this enclosure, which can act as an HID compliant USB device, we can basically send signals just like regular controllers. With a test to map out our buttons and an overlay on our touchscreen, we now have either manual or automatic control. Because Phase 3 had HDMI to USB, it meant that I could always trust that the same pixels were always in the same spot. Unless of course my arch nemesis occurred, the zoom in. The zoom in happens before you catch the bling blipper, and it screws up a lot of stuff. For example, what's the difference between these two? This one's bigger. It screwed up color detection too. I ended up solving this with circle detection because luckily the outside of this circle is about the same as the inside of this circle. But these problems were pretty easy, and before long it was time to release Game Changer into the wild. And I was confident Ahab's fate would not be mine.
Dad, what are you doing?
I was just gonna test the robot. Do you need the TV?
Yeah. Can we do it a little bit later?
Yeah, sure, that's fine.
Okay.
While we wait, I'll tell you a little more about how this works. So let's say you want to play this game. All you need to do is record a clip of yourself playing it and it will save to the controller. Then you run a program called ROI Template Maker on the saved clip. You can move frame by frame and select specific regions of the screen to trigger something. Then this window pops up and you select if you want to match template, brightness, colors, or find circles, and there's even an option to trigger a function to do even fancier stuff. But we don't need that yet. ROI Maker saves all your regions to a file named after the game. So when you run the main script, it finds the file for the game and it knows where to look, what to look for, and what to do if it sees it. It starts by default with detection off so that you can still use the controller just like any other regular controller to get Kirby where he needs to go. And it's worth noting that this controller has no ties to Kirby, it's just a regular controller. You can use it for any game. But if I remember right, we had a date with a legend. So we got everything set up and turned Kirby loose. A couple small fish were no problem, but there was only one scene that I was waiting for. The zoom in. Oh, that's gonna be the big one.
What is that?
And it was awesome. But then I realized why the whale got away. Because Ahab without the white whale doesn't make any sense. I'm just going to try to catch the biggest one ever. So if you look at this website here, it says 11,262. So that's what we're going for. But I don't really know how formal any of these records are. But I've got the setup. I'm just going to let it run over and over and over and catch as many as we can. And we'll see if we can catch the biggest one. Easy money. Still fishing, and we're at like 112 bling blippers, which is a lot of bling blippers. So I have to think that we probably caught just about the biggest one that you can. Check and see what it is. 11,973 grams. But once Phase 3 was working, this game really wasn't even a challenge. I don't even think the fan turned on. So we need something that can really flex our muscles. We need Lunch Rush. That's right, we gotta feed all these little dudes or they get angry at us. even though we already saved them earlier in the game. But this game is no joke. I don't even have a score in the hard mode because I'm too scared to try. The game itself is pretty simple, but it's actually pretty tricky to automate compared to the fishing game. We have to detect the food in the region, find where Kirby is, move him to where he needs to be, and then serve the food. But even more tricky is that the food can appear in all sorts of different ways. You might get the main picture, you might just get the silhouette, it might grow from top to bottom, it might grow from bottom to the top. It's like they didn't want us to automate this game with a robot. But don't worry, because I have a plan. Okay, so here's the plan. All the food appears in one region, and we can use that to our advantage. I made a change to ROI Maker to allow a persistent region, which just like it sounds is a region we can reuse for multiple templates. Now I can just go frame by frame, select that region, and define a new template for all the different types of foods and appearances, which leaves us with 16 different templates. Then we just add 4 regions with color detection so we know where Kirby is. And that was surprisingly easy, but does it work? Considering it's the first try, it works pretty well. But we have a frame rate problem, a pretty serious one. Remember how we have 16 food templates? Well, this works by cropping a frame to the region that we care about and then comparing that to the template. Our code is cropping the frame 16 times, but all these templates have the same region. We only have to do it once. And if we know where Kirby is and we haven't moved him, do we really need to look for him? Just these 2 changes saved like 1,300 operations per second. But would you believe it? That wasn't even the main problem. Who put a 50 millisecond delay in here? Claude. I'm sorry, Claude, I shouldn't talk to you like that. What are we shooting for here? 6,940. And I actually got really close from the start, but there's still some optimization. Like this cutscene was messing up Kirby's position, constant tomato burger confusion. Then I actually beat the record, but only by 1, and I know we can do better than that. Wait, we already beat the high score? Well, why are we still working on this? Yeah, what's happening here is called scope creep. You build the thing to do one thing, and then you do it, and all of a sudden you're aware of all the other stuff you could do with it. And it's really hard not to. Okay, so I added another feature to this program. I swear it's like the last one, but what it does is it will output a frame every time it detects a food item. So what I'm looking for is to see which particular food items take the longest to detect. Bottom burger took 1,690 milliseconds. If you compare that to, say, full burger here was 1,228 milliseconds. That's like 400 milliseconds less. Because if I can cut like 200 to 400 milliseconds off of all of the bottom detections, it's going to give me another serving or 2. Which again might not sound like that much, but I'm definitely slicing it thin here. There's only so much more that I can improve this thing, but it's like once you've built the whole thing, you've got the infrastructure in place, it's like you might as well just try to squeeze all the efficiency out of it that you can, since it doesn't take that much longer. Keep telling yourself that, because what I'm trying to do is tell the difference between a tomato and a burger as quickly as possible, which means this sliver is going to get smaller and smaller, and they're going to look more and more alike. I handle this by switching from one large region to 2 smaller ones. Smaller regions are better for detecting tiny differences, and since they have less area overall, they're actually faster. And after that change, we're finally ready to take on that record. But the real goal of any game changer is not just to chase old records, it's to redefine what's possible. I'm pretty sure that both of these are world records. And no, I didn't put my name on the leaderboards. They don't have a robot category. But I bet you might have ideas on other stuff we could do with Game Changer. So let me know, and if it sounds cool enough, maybe I'll give it a shot. But until then, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.